Whenever I started this book, I went to my Discord pretty early in the book and said, oh my gosh, if this has a moderately happy ending, this might be my new favorite T. Kingfisher book, and this book did not disappoint. Today I'm talking about A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This is a wonderful story. It is my new favorite T. Kingfisher book, right up there with A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. This book deals with themes of parental abuse and forced isolation, yet there is this thread of hope throughout the story, and I really do think that thread of hope is what kept me moving throughout the story. T. Kingfisher has a way of writing such dark and horrifying tales while still making them cozy and charming, and this kind of just does feel like, I described it as cozy horror. I'm not sure if that's the best description. I don't read a lot of horror, so maybe I'm not the best person to make that judgment, but it definitely has that really dark, terrifying feeling while also feeling cozy. In this story, we are following Cordelia, and whenever we are very first introduced to her, she cannot move her body. She cannot flick away a fly. She cannot sneeze. This is because her mom is controlling her body. This is what Cordelia calls the obedience, or her mom made her obedient. And her mom is a sorceress who has the ability to just take over someone's body and force them to do or not do whatever the mom wants. Cordelia also doesn't have any friends. There's maybe one person that she can speak to outside of her home, and she will occasionally try to bring up questions or ask things to figure out if things are normal at home. She does realize that not everything that happens at home is normal, but she's really not sure what normal is. But she also doesn't want people looking too closely or asking too many questions, and she is terrified of her mother finding out and then controlling her body. Something happens in the village where Cordelia and Hester live, and they both flee in the middle of the night and end up at the manor home of this rich bachelor. And Cordelia's mom has decided that she is going to marry the rich bachelor and take over his wealth and inheritance, and her and Cordelia will be set for life. This rich bachelor also lives with his sister named Hester. Hester is an older spinster, and she has a premonition before the sorceress even shows up that doom is coming. And then whenever she sees the sorceress, she just calls her Doom in her head. Doom walked in the room. Doom said this. And I love Hester. She is one of the best protagonists. I love the dual protagonist perspective. It really enhances the story because Cordelia knows that her mother is a sorcerer, and Cordelia knows some of her mother's plans, but Cordelia is really experiencing the outside world for the very first time and is super socially awkward and does not know how to handle social situations or to read them very well. And Hester does not know the sorceress's plans. She does not know the fact that she is a sorceress, but she can read social situations so much better. So we really get to see a fuller perspective of the story by seeing it through both Hester and Cordelia's points of view. Hester is also an older woman who starts to realize that something is not right here, but she will use people's expectations of an old spinster against them. She will just prattle on about things that are of no consequence and try to slide in questions or things to gather information. She will purposely use people's expectations against them, so that way she starts to gather more information and figure out what's going on. She does not want Doom around. She does not want them in her house, and she does not want Doom marrying her brother. But she starts to realize that Cordelia might be a victim in this situation and that something is really not right here. And she doesn't know if she can help Cordelia because she doesn't know what's going on. But she does decide to befriend Cordelia and see if there's anything she can do. Honestly, I really feel like seeing the story from Hester's perspective also helped us have this thread of hope that something might get better in this story. And that really helped me personally, particularly with the particular themes that this story is dealing with parental abuse and isolation. Obviously, this story could have gone anywhere, and it could have gone to a dark place where Cordelia could not get out of these situations, because these types of situations can be very difficult to escape from. And honestly, Cordelia in this story might be a little bit braver than some people in these situations are. Editing Rebecca popping in here. So I said in this clip that Cordelia maybe was braver than I expected her to be considering her circumstances, and I don't really like that I use the word brave here, but what I'm trying to do is acknowledge the fact that it can be extremely difficult to escape abusive situations, particularly in situations like Cordelia's, where it's parental abuse and this is the only way of life she has ever experienced. And it can be very difficult to know how to escape that, to understand that you need to escape that. It can be very frightening to try to escape the only life you've ever known. And I do think it makes sense in Cordelia's situation, because she does not reach out for help or start saying anything until after she's already encountered the world outside of what she grew up with, and she's starting to realize that there might be a better way of life out there for her. So I do think it makes sense, the timeline, the progression, that she would at that point start to reach out to other people and ask for help. But I do also understand that is a very terrifying step, particularly whenever she is afraid of the repercussions if her mother finds out that she is trying to escape, and things could be worse for her if she does reach out and get help, and just how complicated these situations are. So I also understand why people feel so trapped and feel like they can't get out of these situations, or even really understanding that they need to, or what it takes to get out of those situations. And there's a lot of emotions and feelings wrapped up in them. So I do think Cordelia did the right thing, exactly what she needed to, in order to get out of the abusive situation that she was in. And I think she was very brave for doing so. I just want to acknowledge how complicated all of this is. It's one of those stories that it could have gone a variety of ways, but the fact that we did have this hopeful thread throughout the story really helped me personally when dealing with these really dark themes. And that's again with the story being cozy and charming. The middle of the story kind of reminded me of Pride and Prejudice. We have these two people courting in what kind of seems like maybe a historical setting. We also have other people invited over to the house, to meet these people who are courting, or just to like be around. There is talk about, not being alone with the person you're courting because you don't want to cause a scandal. There are things in this story that made it feel like a historic time, somewhat like Pride and Prejudice. But then something would happen in the story, like Cordelia's mom controlling Cordelia's body, or just other things that happened in this story that would remind you how dark and terrifying this story is. We also have this horse. The horse is Cordelia's mom's familiar, and the horse gets progressively more terrifying throughout the story. This is a looming presence that they cannot escape from. We also have side characters coming over that are not necessarily related to Cordelia or the sorceress. They're related to Hester and her brother, or they're just friends of the family. And the side characters are well fleshed out and so entertaining. And I loved that we also got another sorceress side character, because Cordelia, at the start of this book, she has every reason not to like sorcery or not to like other sorceresses. So whenever she is confronted with another sorceress that she actually likes, she has to wrestle with these feelings of, but I don't like sorcery. Sorcery is bad. It can be used to harm people. And then realize that not all sorcerers are like that. And just saying that this book has this hopeful thread does not mean it's free of tragedy. There's definitely tragedy that happens throughout this story and things that these characters have to confront and face head on. And that's really what the entire story comes down to at the end, is like these characters do have to face these problems head on. And I was really pleased with the ending of this book. And this is definitely my new favorite T. Kingfisher book. There's also one thread in this story that I didn't feel like we actually had explained super well and almost left this story open for a sequel. I've not heard anything about a planned sequel, and it could just be a fun little thread that was never intended to go anywhere. But I think there could be another story, and I'm somewhat hopeful that there is. If you've read any other T. Kingfisher books, let me know which are your favorites in the comments, and I would love to discuss this book with you more in the comments. And I hope to see you in another video. Happy reading!